Okay, those of you who heard the introduction yesterday, I'm a marriage and family therapist here in Colorado, down in Colorado Springs, and I work with all ages, all stages. I started my career as a therapist in drug and alcohol treatment, and then I worked in southern Arizona near the border for a long time and dealt with lots of interesting things in that part of the world, and then I moved up here. And I've been focusing on family work, especially in families that have neurodivergent and special needs, kids and adults, and also situations of betrayal and addiction. Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was a college girl casting about for something to do with myself, and I got recruited as a Sunday school teacher for kids with developmental disabilities, as they called it back then. And that was so fun and so challenging and so rewarding that I then sort of waded into being a summer camp counselor for the summer camps. I worked in a respite home for most of a summer. My husband and I started a weekend camp out adventure for kids who were in that like 18, 19, 20 sort of stage where they were too old for summer camp, but they still loved to do those kinds of adventures. So we made it seem more grown up and fun. And we ran that program for a few years. Then started our family and learned what it's like to raise some special needs kids yourselves. And that was an adventure. And then when they were starting to get to the, almost done needing mom stage, or done believing they needed mom stage, I went back to grad school at age 50 to become a therapist. And I love the fact that my education is from this century. If I'd gone right from bachelor's to grad school in the 80s, I would have had a totally different experience. And as a result, I am an absolute brain nerd because neuroscience has come so far in the last 40 years. So today, what I want to talk with you all about is how neuroscience can help us have great relationships even when our bandwidth is low. Does that sound like a pretty good idea to talk about that today? I think it'll be good. So we're going to start by some actual neuroscience language that I want you guys to do with me. So you can stay right where you are, or you can stand up. We're going to speak to our nervous system in nervous system language. You ready for this? Okay. What I want you to do, right where you are, or stand up if you want to, is to raise your hands above your head as far as you can, right? And then stretch back a little bit farther. Just feel that stretch in your torso, in your ribs. Feel it opening up. Oh, that's pretty good, huh? Yeah, just stay there for a second. Take a couple deep breaths if you can. Stretch it out. Awesome. Now we're going to crumple up. You can reach down, touch your toes, or just try to put your elbows on your lap, but crumple that up. Crumple up that torso. That's right. And try to breathe. I know it's squished, but breathe. Feel the back stretching. Let it just stretch all the way down to the lower back. Let your head hang down so the neck stretches. Take another deep breath. Okay, and let's come back up to whatever posture you're up for. So we can't maximize our nervous system's efforts to help us if we don't speak its language. So movements like that and positions like that, stretches, talk to our nervous system in nervous system language, and that's going to help us with our bandwidth. So we'll be doing that again a couple more times before the time is up. All right. Let me get my little thing. Okay, so what I want to do, talk about the elements of connection at the edge of our bandwidth. 3 things we're going to cover today. Self-awareness, perspective that helps us be aware of the people around us, and then creating a shared language. These elements we can use in little drops, little bursts in the middle of everything else you're dealing with. Right? We don't have time for long weekends away, maybe, We don't have time for weekly date nights, maybe. We don't have time for heart-to-heart chats till dawn. But that doesn't mean we can't maximize our nervous system and get some really great moments of connection that sustain our relationships, sustain us through the seasons. There will be seasons when we have more time, or more energy, or more sleep. But that might be not today. Okay. So, here's our speed run on self-awareness tools. There's your pretty brain. I love to think of the brain as a beautiful work of art. As most of you probably know, the brain develops from the back to the front. This is basic functioning. Heart going, yes. Digestion happening, yes. Movement managed, yes. Then it comes up a little higher. We have emotion, memory. It comes up higher. We have motivation, time sense. And way up here at the front, our good friend, the prefrontal cortex, where we can weigh options, predict outcomes, remember what was the last thing that person said to me, and how are they feeling, and what did I say I would do, right? We piece it all together. This is the part that does that work for us. This is really important for a relationship to work well, which means we got to make friends with this guy. This guy. This is our good friend, the prefrontal cortex. He's in charge of kind of steering the whole thing. And he's a pretty jolly fellow, and that's our ability to do humor comes from the prefrontal cortex. Optimistic, got ideas, got energy. Pretty helpful person to be on your side, right? Now, the thing about the prefrontal cortex in the human is that we were sort of designed to handle a world that is not quite like the world we have now. This guy is designed to know what to do about the seasons are changing, the weather is changing, my tribe of people is near me, I am not near my tribe of people. Pretty simple problems. And most of the big scary things are things like tigers, lions, bears. You can see them, you know what they're going to do. He's going to eat me unless I do something about my situation. That part of our brain knows what to do with normal tigers. But we live in a world of slow tigers. They don't just pounce. They're like there all the time. All the time. And they don't do the things that we expect tigers to do. And so our nervous system, our brain, doesn't really quite know what to do about it. And now our jolly little prefrontal cortex kind of looks like this. Kind of looks like that. So what I want to do is get this awareness. How am I doing with the slow tigers? How am I doing? How's my poor little bicycle guy? So I have here a thermometer, because we're going to use that as our image to understand what my brain is trying to do and what it needs. So how many people have ever had to go to the ER or the urgent care with an owie or an illness, and they ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain you've ever had, how bad is it right now? We've heard this, right? And you're like, I didn't know there was going to be a math quiz. What's going on? I worked with a neuropsychiatrist and a pain management specialist to develop what I'm about to share with you to help us really understand how the impact, whether it's pain or distress, the impact of what's happening, how it affects our brain on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 through 4, the impact, the distress, the pain, it's present, but you can do normal things in a normal way. You're aware of it, but you're chugging along. Okay, at 5, we start to limp. I can do normal things, not quite in a normal way. Maybe not as fast, maybe not as often, maybe not as long. Okay? This is going to be important for understanding what our brain needs from us. At 6, we start avoiding doing our normal things. Okay? So think about that, walking into an emergency room and saying, I'm at a 6, I've started to avoid normal things. That's an important piece of data. 7, we're avoiding many or most things, okay? Think about that in terms of everyday life and our slow tigers. If I'm starting to avoid the laundry, avoid the phone calls, avoid the calendar, avoid the dishes, avoid that person, I might be up at a 7. You walk into an emergency room and a 7, they're going to get very serious right away, because that's the level of pain or impact that can start to cause serious problems for your brain. What kind of problems, Mary Pat? Well, how about at number 8, it starts to mess with your thinking, your cognitive function. So what happens? My focus, I can't focus, I'm really distracted. So if you have slow tigers, right, stressing you out gradually because they're lurking around, you may not know how much it's affecting you, but if then you're saying, I can't concentrate on anything, you could be at an 8. That's really serious, right? Or maybe memory. Why did I walk in this room? Okay, some of that is normal, especially if you have enough birthday cake in your life. But if you start noticing, what's the name of my brother's kid? Right? If things that normally would pop out of your memory for you are not popping, you might be looking at an 8. Another thing that can change is your problem solving. You might get stuck in a rut. You might get rigid about your problem solving or can't think of what to do. Or you can be like me, who lost my sunglasses one time, and I'm walking around the house looking for my sunglasses. Where are those glasses? I haven't found them. Where are they? I can't find those glasses. Okay, that's a problem-solving issue right there, and a lot of us have been there. So that means that my slow tigers had me at an 8. The other piece is emotion management, right? I start to act out my emotions. I'm grumpy with people. I'm honking at people. I'm snippy with people. That might mean the pain's getting to my brain. Finding words. In my family's house, we have learned that if you lose your nouns, like what was that thing, that thingy thing? You're starting at early stage 8. If you start losing your verbs, you're in big trouble. We all learned, oh no, I'm losing my verbs. I must be in deep, deep, slow tiger land. And another thing that comes up is the inner critic. Anybody met their inner critic? Okay, inner critic is a cognitive impact. Your thinking is not working very well. Your problem solving is not working very well. Your emotion management is not working very well. The presence of the inner critic is proof that you are at an 8. And a lot of times when we're trying to talk it out, when we're distressed about our slow tigers, we open our mouth and the inner critic takes over. And that's what we hear coming out of our mouth. Blaming somebody, shaming somebody, blaming ourselves, being mean to ourselves, being mean to somebody else. When that happens, you're not a monster. You're at an 8. The slow tigers are starting to really wreck your nervous system. And then what happens when you get to 9? You're like, I don't know if I want to know, Mary Pat. Maybe we could just... At 9, it's not just affecting the cognitive part of your brain. It starts to affect your brain stem. And now we're going to see things like nausea. That's not just worrying with your stomach. That's a 9. Dizziness, like vertigo or feeling dizzy, lightheaded. Sweats, chills, can't control my temperature. Shaking, trembling. And at 10, we just add those things with the possibility of fainting. So when we're trying to be self-aware, we got to understand, what is my body telling me is happening to me right now? Right? Am I trembling? Okay, I'm at a 9. If I hurt my leg and I was at a 9, I would be gentle with myself. I wouldn't say, come on, we're doing a marathon. I would say, whoa, okay, let's get that looked at, right? Let's put some ice on it. We need to do that for our nervous system. When it's sending us these clear signals that it needs big help, Okay, so if you're at a 9, if you're at an 8, if you're at a 7, please notice the signals and let's figure out what to do about them, right? Wouldn't that be great? What is your brain doing? What is your brain asking for if you're at a 7, 8, 9? If the inner critic is coming out of your mouth or pounding in your head, if you're getting snotty with people, if you are feeling nauseated or shaky, can't get warm, can't get cold. What is your brain doing and what is it asking you for? This is where we go back in time to our first language. Before you had words, before you had an inner critic, your body has a name for every emotion. And it's somewhere between your jaw and your tailbone. So if I said to you, think of something happy, and then you really sink into that memory, drop into that memory, somewhere between your jaw and your tailbone, you will get signals coming from your body. Maybe your heart feels warm. Maybe your stomach feels fizzy. Maybe your shoulders relax. Maybe your gut feels cool. Everybody's language is slightly different, but those are the kinds of signals that we are getting. Every emotion has these signals, this set of signals. You see the stretches that we did at the beginning? These are some of the most primal words, signals for our emotions. So when our brain is telling us, I am not okay, the tigers are getting to me, it's asking us to attend. Can you please listen? Can you pay attention to what I'm trying to tell you? And how does it know that we've paid attention? We speak to it in its language. Let's do it again, everybody. Let's put our hands straight up, stretch out. You feel all of this opening up. Big breath. A little farther back than straight. Just really open it up. And see if you can relax your back while you're doing it. And now let's crumple up. Make yourself small. Squish down. Breathe here. Stretch out that back all the way to the lower back. Deep breath. Okay. If you were pushing 7, 8, or 9, this will start to inch it back down. It doesn't kill the tigers. I can't do that for you. The tigers are going to be there. What we don't need is the internal systems melting down because they're not being listened to. So when we talk about our first language for our emotions, it all revolves around this, our vagus nerve. How many people have heard of the vagus nerve? Okay, it has nothing to do with a town over in Nevada where what happens there stays there. It's not that kind of vagus. As you can tell, it's spelled differently. The vagus nerve got that name because when the very clever people back in the olden days were dissecting human cadavers and learning about the nervous system, they said, well, now, what's this? Here's the nerve for the finger. And the brain says wiggle, and the finger wiggles. And if something bites that finger, the brain says, ouch. This makes sense. The nerve has a beginning, an end, and a task. Then they found that the 10th cranial nerve just wanders around in the side of us, somewhere between the jaw and the tailbone, believe it or not. Wanders around. Vagus is from the word for wanderer. Vagabond, vacation, vagrant. Then in modern days, we learned how to do nerve studies with electricity and imaging, and we found out what it's doing. And what it's doing is pretty amazing. This is the nerve that knows our first language. So we want to make friends with this nerve and learn how to talk to it, because when we're connecting with each other, this system makes it possible for us to connect with each other. So how does our vagus nerve help us connect? In peacetime, you have one part of the vagus nerve comes down in the front, one comes down in the back. That's why we do the curl and the stretch. So in normal peacetime, the front part tells us I can rest. Just relaxes, opens up, I take deep breaths, my heart rate slows down. I can digest. I can, probably even handle dairy on a good day. And then nest. Rest, digest, and nest. Nest is connection with our people. If I'm safe enough to rest, safe enough to digest, I'm safe enough to nest, to connect. So that's the ventral vagus nerve, the front part. But it's hand in hand with the back, the dorsal. And they have to trade off. Smoothly, just gliding, cooperating. We want them to trade off because the dorsal part is in charge of get up and move. Good morning. It's part of why we do this good morning stretch, right? And then it's also I'm not afraid to explore, right? When it's in peacetime, I can do wake up, get going, dorsal. Have my breakfast, rest, digest, ventral. Get up and move, live my day, dorsal. Be together with the people I love, ventral. We're smoothly switching back and forth. You can see how if this nerve is not smoothly switching, but it's having an arm wrestling match, it's going to be hard for me to connect with my loved ones. I'm probably not very much fun to talk to. So we end up stuck in emergency mode if they're like this. What does that look like? Hypervigilance. Oh my God, what's happening? Or shutdown. You know what it's like to watch your loved one just go into shutdown. I want to talk to you about how I feel about you. I want to celebrate something cool. I want to tell you about the slow tigers. And they go. If the vagus nerve's not fluid and flexible, I can't stay here for that conversation. I'm going to shut down. Or instead of nesting, I'm going to cling. I might get control-y. I might get nitpicky. And then I might get feisty. The dorsal vagus nerve is fight or flight. So you can see how if we're stuck, if this isn't fluid, able to do its normal functioning, we're going to have all these things that get in the way of connection. And this can happen to our connection with our partner, our connection with our child, connections with the people we have to work with, right? It's so important for this to be balanced in order for us to be able to connect. And that stretch that we did, that helps. You can do it 3 times a day. You can do it before a hard conversation. You can do it after a hard conversation. You can do it before you have to interact with someone who's having a hard day, right? That's one way to get that nerve being fluid. You can also Google vagus nerve toning, and you will find all sorts of nice people explaining how to do that stretch, do other stretches to keep it fluid. So now we go back to our first language and we understand the nervous system's involvement in that. We also need to understand that when we're talking to our loved ones, our language that we use needs to be in tune with our first language. So remember how I said at 7 or 8, the inner critic comes in? When the inner critic is talking, it's all up here, and we're ignoring all of this. If I need to come and talk to my loved one and tell them that I think they're amazing and I love them and I'm appreciating them, I want to arrive with all of me, not just the head and the chatter, but all of this. How do I do that? How do I make my first language into a language I share with my loved ones? This is where maybe our little champions can help us, because they don't have necessarily the same language that we have up here, but they have pretty much the same language from the ears down to the tailbone. And I know you've seen it when we're mad, right? Or that arching the back, right? When something is not okay, right? So if we can drop in to our own core, feel what our body is telling us, get in touch with that, spend time with that, right? It's not a lot of time. This takes seconds. Drop in, breathe a couple breathes, do a stretch. Now when I go to talk to my partner and say, I really love you, I wish we had more time to be together. Or I go to talk to my oldest kid and say, I don't appreciate the way you treated your little sister today. Right? Whatever the conversation, easy or hard, if we've dropped in and attended to that first language, in our first language, our distress scale is going to be low enough that we're going to be able to make that connection in language that works. Our language isn't going to be, you made me so mad. Our language isn't going to be, why can't you ever, how come you always, right? Those are rough starts, right? That pushes a person away. We don't have time for that. There is not the bandwidth for a rough start like that. No bandwidth. If we have 5 whole grown-up sentences we can say to our partner in a given day, because life is so chaotic, we don't need any of those sentences to be, I can't believe you did it. Right? There's no time for it. So what do? We feel it, drop in, breathe in, use some tools. Tons of tools are on the internet. Call me, I'll share some tools with you to listen to our first language, speak to our nervous system, tell it, I'm here. I'm here. I see you. I hear you. You're allowed to be there. That feeling is allowed to be there. But I don't need all the distress. I don't need to be going up that temperature, right? So here it is, simple, basic, the process. First, drop in. Then, that means just check between your jawbone and your tailbone. What is happening here? Is my heart heavy? Is my heart pounding? Is my chest tight? Does it feel like there's a weight on it? What's happening with my gut? Is it twisted in knots? Is it fizzing? Do I feel lightheaded? What's happening? And then we address that, right? If your stomach feels cold as ice, maybe you need a cup of tea. There's a reason all my ancestors thought tea fixed everything. Sometimes that's what you need. The solution is not to think more thoughts in the wrong language. The solution is to attend. That's the solution. Attend, pay attention. I can't take away the sadness, right? There's grief. Life is not what we expected. Life is not easy. We live in a world that is stacked against our kids in a lot of really unfair ways. And I don't have the magic wand that takes that away. That's one of the worst of the slow tigers. But what I can do is make this part of my body less alone, less distressed. And then my mind clears and I have way better problem solving. So drop in, attend. Then we communicate to our body, I'm here. I'm going to take care of us. And communicate to our people, our trusted people. How do we know we can trust someone? It's not because they're nice. We should know that in an election year, right? Nice does not equal trustworthy. How do we know? Guess what? We know from research, and I'm not proud of this as someone in the psychology field, but we know from research that children as young as 1 month old can tell if they're being held by someone who's not sincerely on their side. Now, I don't know how they got permission to do a study on 1 month olds. I mean, it's outrageous. But it's probably true at birth, too, or pretty close to it. So it's built into us to know when we can't trust people. And where is it? Between here and here. It is in that core. You can drop in, and your body will tell you, this one doesn't pass the sniff test, no matter how sweet and wonderful and nice they may be, no matter what their role in your life is supposed to be. If we drop in here often, we can trust, we can learn red flags, green flags, we can feel confident about the choices that we're making. So we communicate with ourselves and then with people that we trust. People who are accountable, who keep their promises, who respect our boundaries, who set boundaries for themselves and honor their own boundaries. People who are transparent, who say what they mean and mean what they say. Our gut knows that, and this part will catch on later. This is not the part to rely upon 100%. Then we share our emotional experience. You know what? I just found out that, the thing we need is not going to be covered by our insurance company, and I'm devastated. I feel lost, I feel sad, I feel alone. My stomach is lead. That language right there, in that little, tiny little one sentence, 2 sentences maybe, I have now just shared my first language and my second language with somebody who can now understand where I'm coming from, what's going on. They know that I'm doing my part to attend to my needs, right, my emotions. That makes it safe. How do we know it's safe? If I'm listening to my body and I'm managing my feelings, you don't have to shut them off, fix them, take them away, change the shape of the universe, become a different person. You're safe to just hear me and to give me the same message I need to give myself, which is I see you and I hear you and you are allowed to be who you are. That's the communication. That's what we need to hear back. Now, I know it's hard. When we love someone and they come to us and they say, I'm so exhausted. I don't know how I can do this for another day, much less 20 more years. That's hard to hear. And it immediately becomes about us. Well, what am I going to do if you can't? I can't do this by myself. You've got to stop feeling that. That's never going to work. I guarantee you, nervous systems don't work that way. But if I hear that from my beloved, I can drop in and say, ooh, that scared me. Because those feelings sound like you're quitting. But if I remember first language, no, that's just a feeling. We have that feeling off in us. Some of us have that a little bit every day. It's just a feeling. It is a feeling. It is the feeling. It has value, it has beauty, it has pain. We don't have to be afraid of it because we have the language. If we talk to our nervous system in its language, we don't have to be afraid of our feelings or our partner's feelings or our children's feelings. So that's the communication piece. When they communicate to us, we attend. We attend to what they're saying. I see you, I hear you. You're allowed to be who you are. We drop in and see how that works for us. This does not mean we have to sit there staring into each other's eyeballs for 4 hours doing all this deep work. It's not like that. That's what I love about living in this century. Twitter taught us that in 140 characters, we can say immense things. So in your family, in your relationships, you can create shorthand language so that you can convey this. You can say, I am at an 8, and I'm going to go take a cold shower. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Right? And then whoever's on our tag team knows, okay, they're not abandoning me forever. They don't hate me right now. They're at an 8, and they're taking care of it. They're a safe person because they're doing what they can. I could be the tag team. And the same thing is true of happy emotions. You know, I had my 4 children in 5 years' time. So in those first 10 years, it was like, I used to say, if you offered me 8 hours of sleep or $1 million, I was so sleep deprived, I would have been too dumb to take the money. I would have just let me sleep. But in those years, in those seasons, when you were just at the edge of your bandwidth, and you still love your partner, and you still love your kids, and your friends who you never get to see, you can use a brief message, says it all. I really appreciate you. My heart feels warm and fuzzy because you took out the trash, or you thought to call me, or you sent me a funny meme. We lose nothing by admitting that someone has had an impact on us. But sometimes we're afraid to do that. Like it makes us unsafe. But if you're speaking the first language to yourself, you will not feel unsafe when you share your feelings with other people. Because your nervous system knows. If I feel a really big longing that I think is going to eat me alive and burn me to bones, I will just drop in and attend and communicate. And it won't eat me alive, and it won't burn me down to bones. I'm safe with me, and I can be safe with you. And those little moments of connection. How you doing today? I'm at a 6. It's a good one. How are you feeling today? My stomach is easy. I have one of my little clients who comes in to my office and we check in and she says, "Today my heart is sparkly." And I'm like, is that good? I'm at an age where that might not be good if I said that. But each of us has our language. So let's spend some time exploring the language of the people you love. Ask them, what happens here when you're sad? You can tell me that if that happens. I'll listen. And I won't say, "Oh no, your chest feels heavy. Well, we better go get ice." Well, ice cream isn't always a bad idea. But we don't have to fix it. We can just, I see you. I hear you. You're allowed to be who you are. That is the most powerful message our nervous systems can get from us and from the people around us. So let's recap. Self-awareness. Pay attention to where you are on that distress scale. What is your brain trying to do? What does it need from you right now? Perspective. What is happening for the people around you? Where are they on the distress scale? What do you know about their language? Can you see them, hear them, let them be who they are? And then, do we have our shared language? And I can't give you the shared language that's going to be particular to your family and your relationships, but I can tell you what will be in that language is, I see you, I hear you, and you're allowed to be who you are. At my house, it sounds like people making pterodactyl noises at each other. Okay, that's a shared language. I'm not fluent myself, but it works for my kids when they talk to each other. So find your shared language and be willing to share some of yours with your closest people. And trust your gut when it says, I really think we could share this with this person. Let's give it a try. We'll be safe anyway. Okay? Anybody have any questions about any of that? Are you ready to do our tool one more time? Let's do it. Okay, let's stretch all the way up. Let's open up that ventral vagus. Open it up. Feel the ribs opening up. Maybe your heart's getting sparkly. I don't know. It could be good. Deep breath. Let the back relax while you're doing it. And now let's curl up. Stretch out the back. Deep breath from here. And then back up again. Okay. Just so you guys know, my private practice is in Colorado Springs, but I also so I can work with anybody who's in Colorado via Zoom or in person or phone. If you ever want to talk about this, and we can do some tools. I can also teach, I do family sessions where I teach the whole family to do tools together. If you're not in Colorado, the organization that my colleague and I started is called Meet at the Well, and we do guided groups, workshops, and book studies where we also cover this kind of thing. It's not technically therapy because the states don't play nice together, but we can definitely talk about tools, listen to your particular needs, and kind of customize tools for you and your people nearest to you. So if you are interested, out at the table, there will be an opportunity to sign up for some of our groups that are starting already. We have a special half-off opportunity for this conference. In fact, these groups didn't exist until last night. And Glenn and I sat down and said, we need to make some groups for these nice folks. So these were just invented for you guys. And we really want to be able to offer these opportunities for you. I work with siblings, neurotypical and non-neurotypical siblings, in the adolescent and younger, and as well as adult siblings. And happy to offer any of these resources to any of you anytime.